Hello, Master Gitu Yuat. It's Friday, March 18th. This is Africa 54.
U.S. President Joe Biden cautions China against providing military aid to Russia. How is the economic fallout from the Ukraine crisis impacting Africa? We'll have details. And in our entertainment segment, special event coverage from Algeria of One Beat Sahara.
We begin in Ukraine, where for the first time several Russian missiles targeted an area near the Lviv airport Friday. Video shows clouds of black smoke rising on the horizon. The city's governor says 4 missiles hit an aircraft at the maintenance facility, destroying its buildings. The Ukrainian military says the facility was struck by cruise missiles launched from the direction of the Black Sea. There are no reports of casualties from the attack. Lviv is located about 80 kilometers from Ukraine's border with Poland. Drone images on Friday from the northern part of Ukrainian capital show severe damage after parts of a Russian missile hit a residential building in Kyiv, according to Ukrainian emergency services. 1 person was killed and at least 4 were wounded. Emergency services said in a statement that 12 people were rescued and 98 were evacuated from the 5-story building. Russia's defense ministry says separatists, with help from Russia's armed forces, are tightening the noose around the city. In a daily military intelligence update, the British Defense Ministry says that the cities of Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Sumy and Mariupol remain encircled and subject to heavy Russian shelling. U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke Friday to discuss the war in Ukraine. China appears to be playing an increased role in the conflict amid reports that Russia asked China for military assistance. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he sees no evidence Russia is serious about diplomacy. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain has more.
As Russia continues to bomb civilian targets in Ukraine, Ukrainian and Russian officials hold video conference talks to try to reach agreement on a ceasefire. Asked for his assessment of the talks, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had this to say.
I have to say, on the one hand, we commend Ukraine for being at the table despite being under bombardment every minute of the day. At the same time, I have not seen any meaningful efforts by Russia to bring this war that it's perpetrating to a conclusion through diplomacy.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky laid out his priorities for the talks in a video posted Thursday.
Negotiations are ongoing, negotiations for the sake of Ukraine. My priorities in the negotiations are absolutely clear: the end of the war, security guarantees, sovereignty, restoration of territorial integrity.
Zelensky said that so far, Moscow has suffered heavier battlefield losses than in previous campaigns in Syria and Chechnya, or even Afghanistan, going back to the Soviet era. Experts tell VOA that Russian President Vladimir Putin has likely been surprised by the fierce resistance in Ukraine, and that Russia's troubles advancing into Kyiv have led to a marked shift in its negotiating position.
But it's interesting that here the Russians have moved from demilitarization to limited military forces, which is a big Russian concession already. They seem to have abandoned the idea of regime change in Kiev altogether. But I think that we should interpret this as the Russians desperately saying, this is what we would like to get now. Please, can't we get this? And the answer is no.
Other experts caution that there is no evidence that Putin himself is serious about negotiating with Ukraine.
I do think you have seen a shift in some of the official Russian rhetoric, talking about, for instance, an Austrian or Swedish option for Ukraine, which would kind of imply a Ukraine is neutral, but that still has ties to the West, and it's not sort of subjugated by Russia. At the same time, I think we are seeing Russia continuing to escalate, and if anything, become even more aggressive in Ukraine in terms of its military tactics there.
Putin may be so isolated that he is not even aware of the reality on the ground. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, told VOA.
President Putin may or may not know that his initiative, his military operation, his war has stalled. He may not know that the Russian military is running out of food and fuel and soldiers. He may not know this. Until he knows that, he will not be serious about negotiation.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had this to say about potential talks between Zelensky and Putin.
There are no obstacles to organizing a meeting on the understanding that it will not be a meeting for its own sake, but a contact between the presidents that will consolidate the agreements reached, which are now being worked out through the two delegations. They have met 3 times in Belarus. Now they are working in video conference mode.
For now, as talks continue, funerals have become a daily occurrence in Ukraine, such as this one in the western city of Lviv, where residents buried their loved ones, soldiers killed in the war. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin used a rally before a packed soccer stadium on Friday to justify the invasion of Ukraine, promising the crowd waving Russian flags that all the Kremlin's aims would be achieved. Putin is also calling Russians opposed to the war in Ukraine traitors. Putin said, quote, "Any people, and especially the Russian people, will always be able to distinguish the true patriots from the scum and the traitors," unquote. For more on Putin's reaction to those opposed to the war in Ukraine, I'm joined live via Skype from Arlington, Virginia by VOA Russian service journalist Danila Galperovich. Danila, there are reports that thousands of Russians have been detained after protesting against the invasion of Ukraine. What more can you tell us?
There is a protest against the war in Russia, and it can be called numerous, but this is not overwhelming or massive. This is because the population is subjected to a very powerful propaganda machine of Russian state TV. Our colleagues from RFRL, from Radio Liberty, they received the data from a group of independent Russian sociologists that almost 3/4 of Russians support the war in Ukraine. And they experience by this poll some pride, joy, respect. So I mean, the protest is, you can see it, you can see thousands, but it is a silent majority. And some people actually supporting this invasion to Ukraine. And Kremlin pressure is mounting on Russians to support the war, although call it a war is officially prohibited, or face consequences for speaking against it. And many well-known cultural figures in Russia calling for end of the invasion and withdrawal of troops from Ukraine, but others clearly succumbing to fear support the war. So I can say that some of my friends actually left Russia in protest of this war, like very famous Russian film critic Anton Dolin, or the prima ballerina of Bolshoi Theater, Olga Smirnova, who moved to Netherlands. And we can speak about some very famous figures, very prominent figures.
Yeah,
but
right.
many Russians silently support.
Definitely. We've seen some on TV with banners. But Danil, I wanted to find out from you, are the sanctions imposed by the United States and other European allies beginning to be felt? Is there an impact yet in Russia?
Yes, definitely. In Russia, everyday items that were produced by Western companies which quit Russia are disappearing from store shelves. And one of the serious fears now, for example, among women in Russia is that sanitary pads will disappear, because those who lived in the Soviet Union, they remember that there were no pads at all. And there is a shortage of some goods and increase in prices in others. But most of all, the sanctions affect the banking and financial sectors. So now it's impossible for people to buy dollars or euros. They can only withdraw them from their own accounts if they have any accounts in dollars and euros. And for example, sanctions also affect Russian aviation. Almost all aircraft are leased, actually, and they do not renew their safety certificates. So it's not clear how long these aircraft will fly without repairs or supply of spare parts.
Danila, thank you so much for your insight. Danila Galperovich is a VOA Russian service journalist. Ivory Coast is among 27 African countries that voted for the United Nations resolution to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ivorian Prime Minister Patrick Archie is in Washington this week to meet with political, business and civil society leaders. Earlier, he met with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Hayley Adams, host of VOA Straight Talk Africa, sat down with Archie and asked him about the UN vote and why Ivory Coast opted not to stay neutral.
I mean, our country has always been consistent on its position on the United Nations, backing up, protecting the frontiers of any country and being against any aggression and being against any invasion. So we've been sticking to what we've been doing all along history. So for us, there's nothing new. It's a normal position that we've been taking. We found ourselves and the same situation for other countries, it will be the same thing.
I want to talk a little bit about the global competition between the United States and China to essentially, be Africa's best friend. Can you tell us about your discussions here in Washington? What are the Americans telling you about what they're prepared to do to counter China in your country and in your region?
We didn't come to talk about issues about China or whatever. I think that themselves, like ourselves, are in a free economy, liberal economy. So our countries are not really looking at this country or this country. We're just trying to develop our country. We're trying to build infrastructure. We're trying to build schools. We're trying to attract investors. And we're attracting investors from all over the world to develop our country. We're concerned that our next generation youth be able to find a country where they can have a decent life, and this is our main concern. And I think that the country has been always, at least our country has been always to investment from all over the world, being the US, Europe, India, Brazil, Turkey. I mean, people coming from all over the world. So we're not making any distinctions. And we don't think that because people invest in your country, you owe them particular thing or you belong to them. It doesn't work like that. It's a free business environment that we're working in.
You can hear more of Haiti's interview with the Ivorian Prime Minister on an upcoming episode of Straight Talk Africa. The economic fallout from the war in Ukraine is reverberating across Africa. We get more in this report by AFP News Agency.
From Malawi to the Maghreb, Africans are feeling the impact of the Ukraine crisis in wrenching fuel and food price increases. Global oil prices have reached a decade high since Russia invaded on February 24. In Africa, they have doubled. Nigeria subsidizes petrol, but this bakery manager still pays more to bake bread.
Cost of production, it has increased immensely. So they have to come together and also increase the price of bread by 40% to what it was before.
Meanwhile, diesel and jet fuel prices are sold at market rates. Samuel Salau, a construction engineer, says the price of diesel has doubled from 310 naira or $75.
Within a month, it left that level to about 600 and something plus now. And so many industry is on diesel. Trucks that bring in food stuff from the north to the south are running on diesel. Even train runs on diesel.
In Malawi, bread is much more expensive at the supermarket in the capital, Lilongwe.
It is more difficult to buy bread because the price has gone up exponentially compared to before. The amount we paid for 2 loaves of bread is now enough only for 1. We are spending more.
Both Ukraine and Russia are major suppliers of wheat and other cereals to Africa, while Russia is a key producer of fertilizer. The war and international sanctions against Moscow have disrupted supply chains, up to places like Bukavu in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo.
We hardly produce anything, and everything that is produced does not reach the market because of the state of the roads. We are totally dependent on international supplies, and the prices are going up because of the war in Ukraine, and this is reflected here in Bukavu.
This dependence has drawn concern from the UN.
We must do everything possible to avert a hurricane of hunger and the meltdown of the global food system.
The war has raised fears of even further increases in North Africa. Amid wholesale flour shortages, this bakery in Tunis has to buy consumer packets.
I am buying 10 kilograms at 18 dinars when normally I would buy a 50-kilogram bag at 26 dinars. All of this before even feeling the impact of the war. How will we work afterwards? I'm worried.
Thousands of civilians have been killed inside Ukraine. More than 3 million people have fled across its borders, and 2 million more are displaced inside the country. The figures are rising fast. As the conflict continues, so will its impact further abroad in Africa.
That report was by AFP News Agency. Former Zambian President Rupia Banda was buried Friday. We get more from Ruth Kamwe of ZNBC, a VOA affiliate in Lusaka.
It is the end of the 7-day national mourning period for Zambia's fourth Republican President, Rupia Banda. Zambians from all walks of life lined up on the streets of Lusaka to catch a glimpse of the funeral cortege carrying the remains of the late foreign patriot as it moved from Minor Soko Military Hospital to the Anglican Cathedral of the Holy Cross. And a somber mood characterized Lusaka's Anglican Cathedral of the Holy Cross as mourners congregated for the funeral service of a man described by many as a true statesman and diplomat. President Hakainde Hichilema said Zambia has lost a man who put the country before self and will be remembered for his love for peace and unity.
Uniters must override, must glide over the few things that may divide us. Very important lesson. I think we must all learn it and live it. It will help us to put that glue all the time amongst our people when we need it most. Thank you, Arabi, for that. Arabi, as you have heard, he looked at many people from their positive side. That, too, is a very important lesson. As God made us, some of us tall, some of us short, some of us dark, some of us lighter. All of us are his creations by his own design. So that which he designs, he who only designs us, must be accepted by all of us at all times. We learn that lesson from Arabi as well.
Giving tribute to her late husband through a close friend, Alice Banda, former First Lady Tandiwe Banda described her husband as a loving, caring and protective partner. Mr. Banda was president for Zambia from 2008 to 2011. Zambia and the international community will remember him for peacefully handing over power to President Michael Sata in 2011, as well as for brokering peace between President Hichilema and former President Lungu during the 2021 general elections. He has since been put to rest at the presidential burial site.
That report was filed by Ruth Kamwe of ZNBC, reporting from Lusaka, Zambia. We'll be right back. Authorities say tropical cyclone Gombe has killed at least 53 people since it slammed into Mozambique a week ago. Another 80 people have been injured and 400,000 affected since the cyclone swept into northern and central areas of the country. The floods have destroyed towns and houses, and data from the National Institute of Disaster Management indicates Gombe destroyed 45,000 homes and partially damaged 30,000 others. The Intercultural Circus Festival of Abidjan is ongoing this week following a much reduced event last year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Touted as West Africa's largest circus festival, the event brings together performers from around Africa and beyond. Henry Wilkins reports from Abidjan.
West Africa is beginning to open up to the world again. As COVID-19 travel restrictions are lifted, cultural events like the Intercultural Circus Festival of Abidjan, or RICA, are returning. The festival was held last year, but it was much smaller because of the pandemic. RICA founder Chantal Dejeje says COVID-19 made organising the festival very difficult.
Last year, we wanted to keep the festival going, but there were very few companies from the Guinea-Burkina sub-region. And this year, the festival has become more colorful because we have 9 companies and 57 artists from many different countries.
This year, RICA is hosting acts from Lebanon, France, Morocco, Guinea, as well as a troupe of acrobats known as Atufa from Burkina Faso. Atufa's artistic director says he faced obstacles becoming a circus performer.
It took courage to take this initiative because my parents hate me doing this sport. If I was not here, I would be in the village right now because they didn't want me to do this job. But thanks to God, today I have been able to develop my skills to this level.
Atufa's performance reflects the ongoing war in Burkina Faso against armed terrorist groups, says Tanyan.
It is through our movements in the performance that we manage to express the war. It changes people's lives because there is a war in our country.
The festival, said to be the largest of its kind in West Africa, has helped promote African circus performers internationally, says RICA director Dejeje.
There are many from the continent who have gone on to Cirque du Soleil, and now they want to come back to the continent and create a circus that is much more of their identity, that is linked to African traditions.
The festival is taking place as West African nations, including Ivory Coast, are dropping mandatory COVID-19 testing for arriving travellers who are fully vaccinated. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
Now to Algeria, where VOA Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell brings us more special event coverage of One Beat Sahara, an initiative of the U.S. State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs and produced by Bang on Aken's Found Sound Nation.
Hello everyone, are you ready for another awesome concert of One Beat Sahara? This is Alpha Tango, a venue in Algiers, the capital city, and it's their second concert. Let's watch.
And oftentimes an African American isn't aware of his or her actual heritage. I don't have any, or I don't know if I have those ties, but I'm drawn to the music anyway. I'm feeling music in a different place. Like I'm feeling beats in different places. So it's expanding my understanding of like where pulses can be in music, heartbeats or you know, like your actual pulse. it's given me a lot of affirmation because I've been accepted into the program. So I feel empowered as an artist instead of just like an employee, if that makes any sense.
Experience was I was selected in One Beat 2019, and I was like in artistic residency with 24 musicians in Florida, and it was an amazing and unique experience. I meet a lot of people with a new instrument. And when I come back to my country, I said, why not? Let's have one beat like Algerian version in Sahara. My band is called Ivory Spirit. I'm leader of the band. I created this band in 2009. We work to integrate Algerian music, and with this program, we work to discover different culture for Algerian people. Words for me like satisfaction, like it's a dream. It's for me like it's fantastic what's happened.
Depuis que j'étais au collège, je me suis toujours intéressé à la guitare, à la musique en général. La sensation, pourquoi? Parce que depuis que je suis en Algérie, depuis à Tahit, le sud de l'Algérie, qui ressemble quasiment comme chez moi à Tombouctou, le nord du Mali, il n'y a que la beauté, les déserts, les dromadaires et des personnalités extraordinaires que j'ai croisées sur ces déserts, des Américains, des Libyens, des Tunisiens, des Algériens. Et c'est des merveilles que je suis en train de croiser chaque jour dans ces séjours en Algérie.
Great music from Algiers, Algeria. That's our show for today. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.